What's up, guys? What's going on? How you guys doing today, man? What a beautiful day, huh? What a beautiful day. I hope that you are enjoying it and that you're receiving God's blessings. I'm Paul. This is Pauline's Theology with Trust in Jesus Ministries, and we are doing our daily devotional. We're going through the book of Genesis, and we are on 41:37 through 46. We have heard Joseph. We have heard Pharaoh. And now we're going to see, actually, we haven't heard Pharaoh after Joseph speaks, and we're about to hear Pharaoh. We're going to hear his response after what Joseph has declared that Pharaoh should do. So if you haven't checked it out, we're in Genesis 41:37 through 46, and we are going to talk about Joseph being appointed to the top tier. A little spoiler alert, but it's okay. Check it out, see what it has to say. Genesis 41:37 through 46. Stop the tape, read it, come back, and we'll answer the 4 questions. But if you've already read it, you ain't got to pause, and we're going to go ahead and talk about what it says. And the first question is this: what is going on? What's happening in the narrative? We see that Pharaoh answers Joseph. Him and his servants think this is a good idea, that Joseph he's come up with a wise idea. Matter of fact, he says it's so wise that nobody could have thought of it, save for the fact they had the Spirit of God in them, man. This is the truth right here. This is what's amazing, is that whenever we speak the truth of God, when we reveal the Word of God, and then whenever we give advice or application to that word that we've spoken, then people recognize that it comes from the Lord. And so Pharaoh recognizes that Joseph has sent a message from God. And then after that, he says, man, I'm going to point you over everything, man. Ain't nobody going to be higher than you. Not a person is going to raise a hand or a foot without you saying so. You're going to ride in the chariot right behind me as the second highest guy, putting you in charge of my house. I'm putting you in charge of all the land of Egypt, man. He says, there is nobody going to be higher than you, save for the throne. He says, I'm Pharaoh. That's what he says, I'm Pharaoh, and that's it. But apart from your word, man, nobody is going to do anything. It says that he puts him in the finest clothes. He takes his signet ring off and he gives it to Joseph as a sign of his authority over all of these things. And then he changes his name and he gives him a wife. And so he set him up to be the person that will oversee all of what is supposed to happen. And all this happens at age 30 for Joseph. It says age 30 was when this all happened. And so just think about that. I think that's 13 years. He was 17 whenever he was cast into that pit. 13 years, man, of ups and downs and sides and pits and falls and jails and false accusations, man. That is, Joseph has been living 13 years as a slave in the land of Egypt. So what's this got to say about God? That's the second question. Well, I think it says he's a promise keeper because he revealed to Joseph and his family in the very beginning of the Joseph saga. He was dreaming, and then when he had those dreams of him and all the things around him bowing down to him, saying he's going to be ruling over them, now we see that this has come to pass. God has made good on the promise that he had given him in those visions. Second, he's the sovereign ruler, man. I mean, Pharaoh is listening to Joseph because of the Spirit of God within him. Because Joseph has the Spirit of God that is flowing through him to speak these words. And so, I mean, we've talked about it before in past episodes about Pharaoh being considered a god But this God is listening to the true God, the sovereign ruler. And so God is a sovereign ruler, man. He controls all things in order to make things come to pass. What does this say about man? I think it says that when you live like you're supposed to, where you're full of the Spirit of God as you walk in this world, people recognize that. Like non-Christians recognize that. People that know God recognize that. This is just a part and parcel of what it means to be filled with the Spirit. Is as you live your life, people see God. And that's the purpose, because God is calling us back to that original glory that we have fallen short of because of our sin. And as we walk step in step with the Spirit of God, people will recognize it. And also trust in God's ultimate plan. I mean, sometimes we trust in the little bitty things going on because we're like, he can have the little areas, but the big, the hard, the giant areas, the massive areas, we want to hold tight to those sometimes, man, but trust in God's ultimate plan. And the reason I say this is because some have gathered that when Joseph was speaking to Pharaoh in the last episode, we were talking about how he was making known what Pharaoh should do after he interpreted the dream, is that it was maybe in some way a sarcastic or a positioning of Joseph speaking and saying these things in regards to himself. That as he was saying these things, that he was making known to Pharaoh that he was the man for the job, because he's talking about wise and discerning. He's like, find a man who is wise and discerning. And then we see here in this narrative, he says, who is there a man in the land that is, who would we find that is so wise and discerning? And then Pharaoh, when he was looking for an interpreter before Joseph actually went before him, he said, looking for a man who was wise and discerning to understand the dreams, interpret the dreams. He called his musicians and his wise men, and none could discern the dream. And so as Joseph saying, where is a man so wise, or appoint a man so wise and discerning? And so Joseph knew the dream that he had and that God was positioning him in this position. And so as he saw the opportunity, he took it, being led by the Spirit. So I think he trusted in God's plan, and that is the goal that we should be doing. As Christians, we should be trusting in God's plan. How do we apply these truths to our lives? Well, let God rule your life. If we know he's a promise keeper, if we know he's a sovereign ruler, and when we follow God and we do seek after the things that he wants us to do and live out the life that he's called us to live out, and then we trust in God's ultimate plan, then people recognize the Spirit of God in us, and we trust in God's ultimate plan. Well, that means we should let him rule our lives. If we see that things work out for our benefit and his glory, we should let God rule our lives. We also should trust in God's ultimate purpose. You know, those two actually kind of go hand in hand. Like the reason that you can let God rule your life, you can allow God to tell you which ways to go, which direction to move, how to do the things you're supposed to do. Well, that's because you trust in his ultimate purpose. And so I want to ask you today are you trusting in his ultimate purpose? Not the small things, but the big overarching tapestry that God is doing in your life and in this world. Are you trusting in God's ultimate purposes? And I ask you to just say it out loud. Say, God, I trust you. And I am placing my trust in you in all things in my life, in all aspects of my life, from beginning to end, from now till death. You have it all. And then next, after saying that, ask him or tell him that you give him complete control. Like in all aspects of your life, say, God, I give you complete control. And I am vocally saying you are sitting on the throne of my life. I think it helps when you speak it out loud, when you say it. And so, man, I entreat you and encourage you and exhort you to say these things out loud because they are truly in your heart. And I appreciate you guys for listening. And I'll see you in the next episode.